What is up, FTN? Taking a second here to post this link to the stream in the Discord channel, courtesy of my partner in crime to the left on the screen from me today. It's Fast Eddie Fear, everybody. It's conference room Fast Eddie. Eddie, how you doing?
Everyone's favorite Fast Eddie. I'm sick as fuck. This is going to be seeing if I can not vomit and speak continuously for an hour will be a bit of a challenge, but I enjoy a challenge. We'll see how we can do.
Yeah, man. And I mean, the good thing is only 3 games for us to break down over the next hour. So not too intensive of a slate here, but a lot of news. Some that we've already got, some that we're waiting on. Really in all 3 games. So yeah,
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, no, you're feeling under the weather, but hopefully the news breaks our way, and then the results break our way as well, and then you're feeling much better by the end of the night. And Tyreek chiming in saying the boardroom man gets paid.
That's nice. That's nice. That's a nice
That
combo.
Is good.
That's good work.
So yeah, I mean, I figure we could just go game by game. Our ranks did go up about 10 minutes ago. Not every day that I get to rank Duncan Robinson a 10 on DK, but I think it is appropriate today, given the other value options, some of the value options that we don't know about yet, and just his propensity for getting on top of this 3.8 price tag on DraftKings. Shooting mid-teens and threes some of these games. So
I have him as my 3rd highest ranked Heat player. And my 3rd highest ranked player. I don't know if your Heat ranks pop as much as mine do.
Yeah, I would assume you're with me on Bam there with Jimmy out. I'm also high on Lowry and Tyler Herro, but those guys both got 9s for me. Herro, obviously the price up over 6K now and questionable. I do think he plays, and Kyle Lowry had a very modest 7-1. So yeah, I'm really high on all 4 of those guys, but for me, Bam and Duncan would be the 2 that I would throw into a lineup first.
Yeah, for me, SuperDraft is actually a lot more interesting tonight. DK is a whole lot of wait and drop your heat bombs on people, especially with still waiting on a significant amount of news from that game.
Yeah,
I think we can certainly, when we talk about DK builds, and we should spend some time on that. There's a question as to, how you build this thing out in the event all the Heat play or some play, and how much money you can defer to that late game, and exactly how you okay, I want to play, I don't know, Bam Adebayo and Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry. How have I set my players in positions? And I think Duncan Robinson is shooting guard and small forward eligible. So in theory, we would have the ability to translate him into Paul George, which would suck up a ton of strategies that can sort of be the backup play. Not that I don't probably want to play him regardless, but so there's a real question, and I think we should have time to even go through and build a lineup or 2 and be like, okay, where can we spend this on? But on SuperDraft, I have being a much more balanced format today. Like my Heat are like the 3rd, 6th, 11th, 12th, and 14th best guys. Like it's not nearly as they respond. Whoever did the multipliers over there did a good job of covering for a lot of this. So it's a much more interesting slate over there, in my opinion.
You always like it when a site prices tightly and makes it more interesting, especially in a large field tournament. I obviously was looking at SuperDraft a lot today, doing the rankings, and I agree that a little less interest in those Miami guys over there, but Bam still really piques my interest because of that forward eligibility and the fact you can play him and Andre Drummond over there in the same lineup is something that I'm really interested in on SuperDraft. But should we go ahead and just start with this first game, because we've got Pascal Siakam out, I believe resting, if I'm not mistaken, and Precious Achiuwa going to slot back into the starting lineup. Precious, one of the 5 guys that got a 10 from me today on DraftKings at 4-1, center only, kind of sucks because there's multiple center-only guys on DraftKings that I have a lot of interest in tonight. But with not only Pascal Siakam out and Precious getting into the starting lineup, Kim Birch also missing another game tonight. And with 280-pound, give or take, Andre Drummond coming in, or I guess they're in Philly, so not coming in at home on the other side of the ball tonight. To me, Precious is going to play a ton of minutes or he's going to foul out. And I have a lot of interest in going there first from this Toronto team.
All right, so let's talk about that. I don't think it is a good matchup for him,
Sure.
but the price is obviously incredibly good. I think he is 4-2 on DK. I'm trying to remember the SuperDraft multiplier off the top of my head, but I have him for
1.6.
1.6?
Yeah, not as attractive over there.
Yeah, not nearly. Yeah, I think he's great. I have him for 30 minutes, and that is, counting the amortization of the unlikely blowout. This is one of the two games that's supposed to stay close. The median game, the Pacers-Jazz game being the one that I think has, and Vegas thinks is the one that has the greatest chance of getting out of control. I expect him to be really chalky. Like I've seen other sites say be at 25 or 30% today. I think he actually gets up closer to 35, maybe close to 40% owned. But 4,200, I have him for 30 minutes and currently 26 3/4 fantasy points. That's pretty good production for 4,200. So chalky, as you mentioned, eats up the center spot. We have, 3 really strong center plays, at least off the top of my head. That's assuming you eschew Gobert, who I think is a tier worse, but I think Drummond and Bam also want those spots. And then keeping into account here, you're also locking early, which again, I think is a pretty significant disadvantage. Like there's a chance half the Heat just say, all right, fuck it, we're taking this one off. Jimmy's already out. Let's run out the Max Strus, Gabe Vincent team. Although I think Max Strus was also questionable. I think he was on that list too.
Yeah.
So yeah, and an interesting point. I imagine I end up a little under on him, but he projects as one of the best plays on the slate. Yeah, I don't know quite else what to say about Precious. But
yeah.
He,
yeah, I mean that's a big thing today on DraftKings specifically is that center position. I mentioned 5 10s for me. 3 of them are center only. And it's those 3 guys you were just discussing. So it's I think that's your biggest decision point. And I agree that figuring out how to get some shares of this early game, because there's targets that I think we want to hit in this Toronto Philly game, but also leaving yourself flexibility in case that Miami news goes wonky, in 2.5 hours. Having that flexibility is going to be key. What's your feeling on that Heat news? Because I personally think those guys play, Harrow and Bam. Bam's had this knee bruise. He's been on and off the injury report for 2.5 weeks now.
I believe they were all or close to all questionable yesterday. I was sick as balls, but I think literally of the 3 guys they've marked questionable, all 3 or at least 2 of the 3 were questionable yesterday as well, and suited up and played. I don't have a great sense of it, unfortunately.
Hey, Eddie, just real quick, I see this question coming in from JJ Frick, and I kind of glossed over this, and I shouldn't have at the beginning of the show. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Shout out JJ Frick, one of our subscribers here. We appreciate you. I'll shout out Anthony Delgado, Tom Sutter. I'll shout out Red Leonard. We appreciate all those veterans every day, but obviously especially today on 11/11. And you're welcome, Josh. And we were talking about Miami.
We were, oddly. We were going to talk about the first game, but yeah, I don't have a great sense. That's a locker room. I would say that as a team, Miami supposed to tend to be less inclined towards the everybody take a day off culture. That's not something they do as much as other teams. But it's interesting. This is, unless I'm wrong here, their first game without Jimmy Butler this year. I think Jimmy Butler played every game to this one. This is their 12th game, give or take a game, maybe 13th, one or the other. And he played every one up to this point. My first instinct from that is that people won't recognize as much as they should how much usage that floats around to the rest of this team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is, a game they want to take, and I don't think this early in the season they'll be inclined to leave those guys off. But your two options are those guys are exceptional plays without Jimmy Butler, or those guys sit out and other guys are really exceptional plays. So again, for me, it's I guess the easiest way to look at it for me would be, do you have a good plan for Tyler Hero sitting or Bam Adebayo sitting or both of them sitting? Like when you look at your lineup, like if they both sit, you're like, oh, fuck, I don't have a valid lineup. Okay, then that's not, oh, shit, I have $6,000 I can't spend. So you have to make sure your salaries and the positions you've left available are, there. And this is a good time to say something that I've said probably, 40 times a year for 5 years, which is, fire drill this shit. One of the unique things about NBA DFS is that it's so incredibly predictable. It's a dog bet most days. I have worked with, had worked for me, or had dinner with, 15 of the top 20 people who've ever played DFS. And a lot of them don't handle this right when it comes to NBA. They treat it like a spreadsheet exercise, the same way they treat football and baseball, and that tends to not work. And I know several millionaires who are great at other sports and kind of suck at basketball because they don't understand that the best thing you can do in basketball is have excellent bankroll control. And by excellent bankroll control, I don't mean choosing how much of your stash to wager every day. I mean, when clearly you are massively advantaged, which happens much more in basketball than in other sports, you bet a ton. And you have a process by which you know how you're going to do that. And it depends what site you're playing on, but you should know what happens if there is weird news and it turns out Bam Adebayo is going to sit and that news comes out at 9:54 Eastern time tonight. Like, okay, first I got to repair my lineup or lineups. And then this is what I do to get the most money possible on the table and make the most advantage of that. Tended to be for me metric piles of small cash games. Just like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to play every single cash game I can because some number of people are going to put Bam Adebayo in there because he was originally ruled in and then knocked out or whatever the hell. But it's an excellent night to understand that, like, you should be very happy to break even most nights in basketball. Like, obviously, you're going to have some nights you randomly spike 10 grand. Congratulations. Good job.
Sure.
You're going to have some.
Shout out Kyle Murray, 10 grand last night using the FTN optimizer. His own
very regularity. Him and TD Jones, and we're going to get a lot of people who are striking while it's hot. And that isn't to say that isn't a part of your thing, but there are going to be 2 to 9 nights a year where you are printing, and your ability to execute that in 2 minutes instead of 4 can literally make your year or not. And back when this was smaller and the tools were less, and I spent a lot of time because I was playing on 6 or 7 sites a night at the time. There used to be that many reputable sites going at once. And I had a whole fucking plan where if news came out at 9:58, I knew where I had to go this click, this click, this click, this to make your changes and then to flood the goddamn table. And you just will get nights where someone is rolled out at 9:58, and you know that guy is going to be, let's say it's just a guy who's going to be 30% owned. Your ROI on this slate, your plus EV, went from every dollar you bet. You're probably, if you're a good player, every dollar you bet on a normal DFS basketball night, you're a dog. There may be 10 people in the world who, without any breaking news towards lock, I think if they bet $1 on, let's say, Draftkings, it's different around SuperDraft because there's always some overlay and you can find some contests there. So your dollar might normally be worth 90 cents, 95 cents, $1, $1.05, $1.10. You could get lucky there. But on Draftkings, almost anything you play, your dollar is worth 85 to 90 cents. If you're really good, your dollar might be worth 95 cents, 97 cents. Very few people, I think, honestly, put $1 in play and have an expected value of more than $1 coming back. But there are nights where a guy goes out and you should expect that your EV rapidly jumps to $1.27 and you should shove chips into the middle of the table. It's very much like poker and an exercise in that it's not just about having the best hand. It's about getting the most value out of when you have the best hand. And there will be once in a while in NBA DFS. That frequently happens in late slates. Like, your process should be fix my lineups, get more money on the fucking table with those lineups. Is there still time? Find the showdown slates. Beat the shit out of those. I can't tell you how much money we made on showdown slates last year. Many of you know, where it was like, well, this guy's going to be 39% owned and he isn't playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, knowing what the pivots are immediately. This applies more to single entry than GPPs, correct? I think it applies evenly.
Say across the board.
I mean, it applies to cash as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really across the board. I think you could make an argument that it would apply best to GPPs because fewer lineups are able to be expertly fixed in short order.
Mm-hmm.
So like cash lineups, most people play a cash lineup. So in theory, whenever any user gets news that a guy in their lineup is out, they're on 3 clicks to fix it. Fuck, Kyle Lowry is out. Lineups, Kyle Lowry, X, replacement in, go.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it's a GPP, at the very least, you're late swap-tomizing, or there's more than the 3 fucking clicks. Whereas single entries and GPPs, and cash rather, I think it's a quicker fix. So I imagine while it applies to everything, it would have the greatest utility. And again, there is a big difference between 45 seconds before lock and 90 seconds before lock and 3.5 minutes before lock. But knowing what you're doing and knowing how to do it quickly is probably more important than most of the basketball stuff we get into talking about. And so, like, I've been saying this for years now, you got fire drill this shit. It doesn't have to be now, but at some point tomorrow at noon, doesn't matter. Imagine that you have your lineups and you find out at 9:58 that Bam Adebayo, who had been announced in, won't play. Go. What do you do? And I'm not talking about what lineup swap you make. That's a whole separate decision. That's going to obviously change day to day. What exactly are you clicking to click your lineups on whatever sites you play? What exactly? Because you need this order of operations memorized. Which site is faster and slower? Which one do you do first? How do you quickly get money on the table? I give you 30 seconds. You have your lineups already built. Get the most money you can on the table. How do you do that? And a lot of people don't know. And again, NBA DFS is a 200-night marathon.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be between 1 and 6 times that if you can accurately take that news a month, you can pay off a month's worth of losses in 2 minutes by handling it correctly. So, Lowry or Hero in a vacuum? That's a very interesting question. I have Hero projected slightly higher, and Lowry's had a nagging, I want to say, ankle, and I think, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Let me check my news. Yeah. So, he's had a nagging ankle injury. I don't think he actually has an injury designation right now. But if they get a little resty, I would be more inclined to see. I think Lowry might get cut a little more. His position is a little more fungible for them. So, they can throw some more minutes at, assuming Max Strus is playing or Gabe Vincent, or like they have ways to sort of, cover his. Plus, I'm a little more into the Lowry Butler synergy. Again, we don't have much of a sample size here, and this is the first time Butler's been out, but I think it's sort of a better boost for Tyler Hero, and maybe less of a boost, if one much at all, for Kyle Lowry. So I'm a little more inclined to get Tyler Hero into a lineup than Kyle Lowry right now. They both grade out fantastically, obviously, depending on what exact variables come in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tyler Hero's just been on another level this year, not just like with his production, but it's just the opportunity. Eddie, like, gone are the days of Tyler Hero coming in and taking 7 or 8 shots in a game. Like, he's more likely to hit 20 than be in the single digits in terms of attempts now, and the peripherals have been there. So yeah, and I have no idea why his price came down $600 from yesterday.
He was up at 57, he's 61 right now, right?
Yes. So yeah, I would agree with your take there. But getting back into the first game, and we really haven't talked much about the Philadelphia side of this first game yet. Doc Rivers is playing games with the media and therefore with us right now about Tobias Harris and how much he's going to be able to play. I mean, technically, if at all, I think he was just like, I think he's going to play. But assuming Tobias Harris is in and limited, what is that doing to the rest of these wings specifically? You know, we've seen a lot of Furkan Korkmaz has had some huge games, had a dud last game. You know, Shake Milton probably will not start, I would think. I think Seth Curry's probably going to be back today. He's a game time decision right now. Georges Niang certainly takes a massive hit with Tobias back in any capacity. And Paul Reed, I think, is just pretty much out of consideration.
I mean, he's dead. They're giving him not enough time.
Yeah.
Anyway. But, yeah, the 76ers as a team do not project terribly brilliantly, especially with a limited Tobias Harris, who's there in places. I have him for 30 minutes. I don't know how much the conditioning issues will be. Something that you and I have discussed a couple times in the past is I'm always, I don't know if amused is the right word, but I'm always interested in how quickly the conditioning falls off for NBA athletes. But, you know, depending if you're missing for rest, missing for injury, missing for COVID, which obviously has a significant cardiovascular effect.
And we don't know, like, unless I missed something, I haven't heard anything about what his symptoms were over the last 10 days. Because he was out the 10 days, he did test positive. So, yeah, I agree. Sorry to interrupt. Just thinking about those symptoms.
That's my point. So, you know, there's the issue of time and then the issue of efficiency and his price / modifier on DraftKings and SuperDraft. Neither of which
says he was asymptomatic.
Right. That's I had heard that I had not heard any. I heard he didn't have any serious symptoms. I think were the words that I heard. But regardless, you know, it doesn't seem like it was too bad. If he's entirely asymptomatic, hey, God bless. Yeah, I'm not. They don't, you know, rate very well. It's worth pointing out that this is, you know, for a game environment, a pretty crappy looking game environment. Both these teams are playing extremely slow this year. Everyone's price has obviously come up. I think you can make much stronger cash game plays for a lot of the 76ers guys than you can for GPP plays. I think there's obviously Precious Achiuwa has a ceiling. Anyone who's going to play 30 minutes at 4,200. I think I have Chris Boucher projected for 19 minutes and 19 fantasy points right now. That's.
Did you say 19 and 19?
I'm 19 and 19 right now.
Okay.
What do you have?
16 and right around 19. Okay. What's the reason for the downtick in production there? Just the matchup? I mean, he's given up 80 pounds to Drummond.
Yeah, the matchup, the pace, a number of things. I mean, the 80 pounds to me factors more into sort of a minutes consternation, but I just think they may end up going towards the large side of things. So, you know, he could definitely get some more time at the 4. I think there's this weird, you know, space where he correlates sort of badly with Svi Mikhailuk, who's going to pick up some of those minutes in the event that they end up going smaller, which I think is a little more likely. I think Svi Mikhailuk, I saw him projected as being only 7 or 8% on one side. I think that's way too low. I think he's going to be closer to the high teens. But you know, let me go with the 2 different versions of this I ran. Yeah, I had Svi now at 29 minutes, and I'm gonna make sure I have this right. Yeah, I have Svi at 29 minutes, and the Freak at 19. So they keep adding up to about 48 for me, and I think that's right. And I think you'll see something like 48 minutes between the two of them. There's going to be some ebb and flow there. More foul trouble we get on Precious, the more time they'll kind of have to run Chris Boucher out there. You know, the smaller they'll able to keep the game. If they try to push the pace a little bit, you get more Svi Mikhailuk in your life. So they sort of have a negative correlation. You can put them both in the same lineup. They cost, I think, 32 and 3,500, if you will, on DraftKings. So while they negatively correlate, they're cheap enough that it doesn't matter. Like if they were going to get 30 and 25 fantasy points and they now get 28 and 25 fantasy points because of negative correlation, that's not going to make them very possibly 2 of the best plays at those prices on a 3-game slate. So I think those guys are both fine. I think Svi is actually going to be slightly chalkier of the two of them, but I've definitely seen some different ownership calls on this for a while. But as far as the 76ers go, yeah, I will give you my best projected 76ers, and they do not project terribly well. I am presuming I have Drummond on top. I would be very surprised if that is not where he landed. Yeah, I have Drummond on top, and then it gets really weird. Like it's whether or not I want to try. Like Seth Curry, I think is really interesting. He's still under 6K. There's obviously a lot of usage. I think this is a situation where it's a bad matchup. It's he's not 100% in game time decision, but you're going to get him at 2% owned.
Mm-hmm.
Guy obviously just has nights where he ends up playing large amounts of point guard. He obviously correlates really badly with, well, not really badly, but correlates poorly with Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton. Everybody's prices have come way up. I think the last time we did a show was before Shake started popping, or maybe it was last Wednesday. I'm like, Shake is obviously going to start to do so sometime soon now, and his prices come up, whatever, $2,300 since then. But yeah, if you told me I had to play a 76er in a GPP, it's probably Seth Curry once I've confirmed he's starting. I think is where I would end up landing there. But they all rank.
Look at that, timely. Seth Curry will start. Maxey, Curry, okay. Green, Harris, Drummond. And shout out to HB Cards in the chat. Followed up on our Tobias asymptomatic talk with an article from Sports Illustrated that said, this is a quote from Doc Rivers, he's doing okay, but not great, honestly. That's the most I'm going to say about it. It hit him for sure. A lot of guys have had this. They are mad, like, what the hell, I'm fine.
Yeah, okay, that was my impression when someone said asymptomatic. I was like, I was the impression he had symptoms that weren't fuck your life up symptoms, but he had the standard lethargy, shortness of breath, what have you. So I didn't want to be contrary, but good job in the chat sourcing that out. So, right. So, yeah, you told me I want to play a 76er. Seth Curry is the first one I would get to. I have no issue playing Drummond. He's obviously starting to price himself into a difficult territory. One of the top plays on SuperDraft, I think you had him up there at even with his non-multiplier. I think he may have no multiplier whatsoever. He's at 1.1. He's at 1.1 or something like that. He's got a little bit of a cookie.
Who's that now?
Andre Drummond.
Oh, yeah, 1.15.
One of the 1.15. Yeah. So that gets him to. It should be a low scoring night there, but that gets him into the top 5 or 10 players. One of a few guys who seem like they should project for a little bit over 50 with their multiplier. Like I had him at 51. I don't have anyone over 53 today. So what else about this game? Let's talk about Toronto a little more granularly, and then move on here a little bit. Obviously, Fred VanVleet. The days of $7,400 Fred VanVleet. Our first show of the year, I was like, this dude is just going to play.
What do you think about guys like Delano Banton? Like Delano Banton was taking some minutes away from Chris Boucher when the Raptors were shorthanded earlier in the season. I think he's somebody that I haven't heard a lot of talk about and doesn't project too far.
Play, man.
Yeah. And then I think more of an off the board play, but I think maybe worth discussing since we have the time. Justin Champagnie, the rookie, could get some backup time in the front court as well. I'm really, just,
there was no
Nick Nurse just doesn't like playing Boucher at this point. Like he's older. We know what he is. He doesn't fit into their long-term rebuild plans. But I'm also, on the other hand, it's like, what other option do we have tonight? To me, it's Banton, it's OG sliding down and playing bigger, and it's Champagnie.
I think there was some chance they were going to actually start OG at the 5. I was actually not shocked if they went mega small here and just tried to deal with it. OG
puts fee out there.
Bigger guys pretty well. You start to be. I thought there was a chance they would run that lineup out. I would go with Delano if I had to pick one of those guys. Obviously, the flat minimum in a 3-game slate, he would end up in my player pool as a way to get there. You're more hoping for the blowout to really get there. I think I had him projected for 13 minutes and 10.25 fantasy points or something. Like he is not going to, by raw projection, make it in there. Obviously, Chris Boucher is not someone they want to lean on a lot, but he does understand the system, which matters a lot for me. They are missing a lot of front court depth. This is a a in conference game. So I think it is viewed competitively, and he does give them the best chance to win. He will play at two positions. Like there's been plenty of games this year where with reasonable, like the last two games he played absolutely balls, but Pascal Siakam played each of the last two games, the game on the, whatever it was, the game on the 7th and the game on the 10th, I think. So I think your downside is it goes badly and he ends up in the 13, 15 minute range. And on a 3-game slate, Chris Boucher can still get that job done at that number, at that spot. So I would be a little more inclined to Chris Boucher than some of the other value plays we're talking about here. I think
sure,
we've seen him get to that value. But again, you are now locking up a valuable forward center spot 3 hours before the game where we could have some uber valuable forward and center spots. So
yeah,
tricky.
I agree.
All right, let's talk about the big game.
Yeah, let's talk Pacers and Jazz. Pacers going to the Elevation in Salt Lake tonight on the back-to-back, which saw Karis LeVert sit out last night. He is also out tonight. And we got the return of Malcolm Brogdon last night, who played 34, 35 minutes right there in the middle of those two numbers, put up 21 shots, produced really well at his 7.5 price tag last night, got a $1,000 price hike for tonight's slate against Utah. That being said, I still have some high interest in a guy like Malcolm Brogdon with LeVert out. 7th in the league in potential assists so far this year. Again, that's a small 7-game sample size for Brogdon. But the shots have also been there, exceeding 19 shot attempts in 5 of his 7 games. And one of those was a game where he left early and only played 22 minutes. So that's where I would start with this Pacers team. I think Sabonis is fine. And then I like Justin Holiday a lot, guard forward eligible at 3.8. So what strikes your fancy with these Pacers?
Yeah, Justin Holiday is probably my favorite. It's the value. It's Justin Holiday or even Torrey Craig at
had a Torrey Craig question earlier.
At 3-1, I think I would rather get to. They're guys who can just drill in some threes at random for you. I think Justin Holiday's got the better positionality of the two of them. He's guard forward as opposed to Torrey Craig, who's I think small and power, which is still not bad for positionality.
Yeah.
None of these guys rate terribly well. This is a Utah team that doesn't play terribly fit. Now the pace of this game is well faster than the pace of the first one, so that's not irrelevant to consider here. And we still have no Karis LeVert, so there's a little extra usage floating around where that turns into time for Justin Holiday and Torrey Craig instead. But I went back today and spent quite a bit of time watching a very reasonable amount of footage with Brogdon against them and Miles Turner trying to deal with Gobert and Sabonis trying to deal with Gobert. And I didn't come away with anything I super wanted to do. I'm worried the game gets out of hand additionally. I think past those two value guys, Brogdon would be my next favorite guy at those prices, but they're just not that cheap anymore. And I'm surprised the line on this game isn't a little bigger, honestly. Pacers on back-to-back, Jazz not. Jazz at home, who I believe have not lost a game at home. So, I would have thought this was a 10.5, 11-point game.
It has now slid to 10.5.
Hey, look at that. It was 9 when I looked at it. Okay, I was about to say the magic words. I would probably put some money on the Jazz, but 10.5 is all right. So, well, there you go. Back-to-back and everything, thin air.
Mm-hmm. You are correct. The Jazz 4-0 at home in the Elevation.
So, and again, who gives a shit? Sample size of 4 games is not whatever, but just
we know it's a tough place to play.
Yeah. And again, I don't mind this Indiana team. I think they're perfectly average and they can certainly, put up a game here, but just none of the pieces feel great for me. Miles Turner and Rudy Gobert have shared a basketball court at least a dozen times that I can remember, and I would have more interest in Gobert than Miles Turner. But this is now much better rebounding Miles Turner. I think he's up around like 9 rebounds a game. That's a complaint there's been about him for a while now, and that has to do with a bit more of the spacing and both the offensive and defensive systems they're running this year. But Sabonis is out a little bit more. That helps him a little bit. So just he and Gobert are kind of having each other there. So like I don't think Miles Turner gets his 10, and I'm pretty sure Rudy Gobert doesn't get his 20. So that's not the path of least resistance for either of those guys. Sabonis is always tough in GPPs, especially at that price, to see getting his upside. Now he's going to be 12% owned on this slate or something. So
yeah,
probably appropriate. You can do it. I would have some. Maybe sort of like Seth Curry, TJ McConnell would be the guy where I'm like, okay, this. So they were without. I'm just lounging on the table now. They were without Karis LeVert yesterday. Again, they're on the back-to-back. TJ McConnell played 29 minutes, I think, off the bench. He was the guy that gave the run to. Duarte only played 21 starting. McConnell had a pretty decent game. Again, Brogdon played whatever it was, 34, 35. He had 5 dimes if memory serves. McConnell had 9 in his 29 minutes. He didn't record a steal, which is very un-TJ McConnell. He had a block if memory serves. So, that's sort of the guy to randomly spike the upside, and I doubt the ownership is quite there. He's still in the mid-5s, sort of the price point I like targeting a little more versus how I think people are going to build their lineups tonight. But I don't, in one lineup, I wouldn't have a pacer. In 5 lineups, I would have 2 or something like that. Like I would have a pretty low amount of pacers. Yeah, but I'd be surprised if there were 2 pacers in the best lineup tonight. One seems reasonably popular. I guess I'd have a little more than that because of the value guys. I'd have more Justin Holiday than I'm thinking off the top of my head. And I think Torrey Craig has some facility, although a lot of my Torrey Craig would turn into Chris Boucher. So,
yeah, that's one thing I wanted to point out in Kyle's ownership projections. No pacer projected for over 20% ownership. So if you are running multiple lineups, I think taking a shot.
Top one, Holiday or Sabonis?
Sabonis sitting up there at 20. Holiday second.
He has him at 20. Yeah, I think Sabonis is actually going to be lower than that. We will not be around to check that because I've been told we have to shuffle off very shortly after lock. We have a Mario Party or something.
It's something that happens on Thursday nights. I'm not sure what it is.
Better not be fucking golf.
No, it's not. You avoided that one yesterday just by being sick.
Was there a golf show after you guys went
Yeah,
off?
but it was much later. We didn't get cut off by them, luckily, or else we would have to fight.
Yeah, as you do when oppressed. That's how that goes. All right, let's talk about the Jazz a little bit.
Yeah, I'm much more attractive plays here. Producer Thomas saying he can confirm it is a Mario Party stream on After Us.
I'm going to play Bowser.
Fair enough. Obviously, up top, Donovan Mitchell, looking great this season and usage up. I don't know off the top of my head, Eddie, what his usage was last year, but I imagine it was lower than the 34% that he's holding so far this year.
28 and change.
Yeah, I mean, he's been. You look at the last 4 games, 20, 24, 28, and 30 shot attempts for Donovan Mitchell. And when the rebounds and assists are there, he's going to put up a really nice number at this 9K price tag, especially on a 3-game slate. So I have some high levels of interest in getting to Donovan Mitchell on this slate. And then I think, it's kind of the usual suspects here. Like Mike Conley came back up over 6K, rightfully so. He's fine. If Bojan hits his shots, same thing with Jordan Clarkson at right around their 5K price tags. Those are fine. I'm less on Joe Ingles with everybody healthy. I like Royce O'Neal at 4.5. And then I'm not quite certain what to do with Rudy Gobert at 8 flat. So how do you feel about the Jazz?
In one GPP lineup, Gobert is probably the first one I put in.
Okay.
I'm not thrilled with him. I'm not thrilled with anyone on the Jazz, but I have Gobert projecting for just like a little bit less than Donovan Mitchell. I think it is worth making sure some of your lineup builds deal with, this game is going to blow out. So you're running your Eric Pascals or, the various rookies. Gives you a little more facility for, say, Chris Duarte in that lineup. I think because of the other excellent, more popular plays in Gobert being someone who's sort of always under rostered and fairly unlikely he'll kill you. I've seen another number of people say that like the Pacers have been tough against centers this year. That doesn't matter a super amount for me because of the way Gobert accrues his points and because I've seen him play against Miles Turner so long and because some of that is sample size based and the Pacers defense is honestly really, really bad still. So I don't, the whole they're good against centers thing I think is between 0 and 20% true. So that doesn't really dissuade me, but it's just, a guy who I think at 8K can get 50. Like I have Donovan Mitchell projected for, I think 40, give or take a quarter. And I have Rudy Gobert projected for like 37. A little more inclined to try to take that shot and just get a guy. Like I was looking for an edge against the field in a situation like this. So
sure.
I think I would have less Andre Drummond than the field and a little more Rudy Gobert, I think. In tournaments and cash, you play Andre Drummond probably.
Sure. We've had multiple questions about Bojan Bogdanovic. How do you feel about Bogey tonight? Or I guess Bojanovic, as Joe Metz would call him.
Probably my second on that list. Has the same projection he always does, which ends up being because of, the potential of the blowout instead of being 32 minutes, 31 minutes, and instead of being, 27 fantasy points, 26. But has the real chance of just getting hot and scoring an upside. It's a good matchup for him, assuming that cross guard and Holiday moves over a lot. So there's no particular impediment I see in the head-to-head with him getting there. So yeah, you're looking for that's probably a little higher owned, but a much safer play than Seth Curry. I saw a conversation where someone was saying if Tobias Harris is in, I would have no Seth Curry. That's fair. I again worry about exactly what kind of Tobias Harris we're going to see, but that's sort of my plan. I think like game time decision, Seth Curry, if he plays, is like 2% on.
Yeah, well, and he's starting, and this is a guy who has eclipsed 20 real points in 5 of the 11 games so far for Philadelphia, and Tobias Harris was in for at least 3 of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Seth Curry is just fine.
Yeah, I like, but I understand it's not the safest play. Boji is. Right. Seth Curry and Bojan and Jordan Clarkson all end up looking pretty similar. Bojan has, because he's got a little more rebounding floor. He's sort of the safest of the 3 of them. They have different conflicts. Clarkson more specifically negatively correlates with Donovan Mitchell. So you keep that into play in your lineup construction. Curry's the lowest owned, but the most expensive of them. And, there's game stacking and environments to consider here. So I would make sure to be building around a narrative whenever possible. But let's get to that final game and talk about some of the obviously variable plays that are we have to consider when we're thinking as to whether or not some of these guys are going to be out. I don't think Tucker was questionable today because he was questionable yesterday. I just looked up yesterday's injury reports.
You are correct. He was not on the injury report today. Not that I've seen.
Right.
So I mean, we kind of touched on it at the top of the stream, Eddie. And I got this question. We didn't talk about it between us two. Would you be okay, assuming everybody questionable plays, would you be okay on DraftKings putting Bam, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, and Duncan Robinson in the same lineup?
Yep.
I agree. I think it would be, I would want to get 3, I think, but 4 would be fine.
Yeah.
And I think Lowry's the first one I leave
There's
out.
a real chance the first game is just garbage and the second game blows out. I don't know what the odds are of those things, but if there's, I don't know, let's say each of those things are 30% likely to happen, there's just a 9% chance that the last game is the only one that fucking matters. And you're just trying to grab maybe a piece from those. And so you run those 4 guys, Paul George, whatever the hell, Justin Holiday, Guy, and sneak in there with it. Yeah, I would be fine with that. That is not on a larger slate. I would be like, no, You really want to have 3. The fourth one, but it's always a consideration of what you're giving up to make a play. And there's a chance you're really not giving up a lot. So with one of those guys being ostensibly really just a value play, that would be my inclination would be that it is fine to have those 4 guys in the lineup.
I think if you stack even 3 of those guys, I think it's a really good idea to come back with a Clipper and most likely Paul George.
If you can, you're going to have budgetary issues in theory, depending which guys you stack. But yeah.
So if you put all 4 of those Heat guys and Paul George in, you're still left with 5.1 for your last 3 spots. Which with the other, pieces of value that aren't necessarily screaming lock me, but you could slide Precious in there, and then you're up to 5.6 for your last 2 spots. So
you can have Eric Bledsoe in there, another guy we'll get to in a minute.
Absolutely. So definitely doable. What about some of these other somewhat secondary guys for Miami? The aforementioned PJ Tucker down to 3-1. Do you think he went off last night in that overtime game, 38 minutes, snuck in the double-double, 10 points, 13 boards. I don't know if the field's going to chase that today, but is that somewhere you would be inclined to go? The price, 3-1 is nice. He's not going to crush you. He's probably going to get low double digits.
I think he'll play. He's not on the injury report. I have him for 32 minutes and 18 fantasy points at 3.1. That's a perfectly reasonable projection. Jimmy Butler being out is bad for him. I want to be 100% clear. There's been 5 years of PJ Tucker, and there's been 5 years of people misplaying PJ Tucker where they were like, oh my God, Russell Westbrook and James Harden are out for the Rockets. I got to play PJ Tucker. It's like, nope, that is not how that works at all. PJ Tucker is going to get roughly the same amount of rebounds if his alpha scorers are around or not. And he's going to get roughly the same amount of blocks and steals and defensive stats and the occasional odd dime. And he is going to score fewer fucking points. And that's my favorite thing to make fun of people for years, where the best pros in DFS would be like, oh, my chalk guy tonight is PJ Tucker. I'd be like, yes, because it's so hard to either A, understand basketball, or B, look at history. Where literally PJ Tucker would average, these numbers may be wrong, but the ranks are right. Like when he was playing on the Rockets alongside Westbrook and Harden, he literally averaged this many points with, I got to put my hand where we can see it, this many points with both of them, this many points with Harden out, this many points with Westbrook out, and this many points when they were both out. Because he can't make his own fucking shot. It's fucking PJ Tucker. He's a brick wall. He's round.
Yeah.
So the only way he scores is on corner threes. And you could look at that stat too if you wanted to actually, do some research or fucking look at something. But you would see that his corner threes per game when everyone was in was 3.6. When one was out, it was 3.2. And when they were both out, it was 2.4. You can't get fucking open because you don't have the best guys in the game fucking slamming into the paint at 1,000 miles an hour. So taking Jimmy Butler out of there is not – now, again, it's not quite the same. But it's not a bonus. It's not like, oh, my God, fucking Jimmy Butler's out. PJ Tucker is going to fucking be dunking on people. It's not probably what's going to happen today. So PJ Tucker is fine. I imagine he will be – 15 to 20% owned. What does our good friend Kyle Murray have? I'm going 15 to 20.
PJ Tucker, 16 and a third.
Boom, boom, boom. We could both be wrong. I don't know why that's boom, boom, boom. But anyway, So that's enough that if I was playing today, would probably play 0. There's any number of ways in which he scores 7 fantasy points. Seems more likely to me than 27. There's other value I find interesting. So I probably wouldn't play a lot, but he's fine. He projects as perfectly equitable piece of cheese that you can throw out there. But generally, not playing PJ Tucker when he's more popular has been a very good idea over the last X years. If you literally look at the talkiest PJ Tucker days over the last 5 years, pick the top 10. He was good. Maybe one of them. That would be tough research to do because we don't keep great ownership records. But yeah, not a guy I'm looking to ride the chalk on very frequently.
So how about, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but if Max Strus sits, and I think out of the questionable guys that are left on this injury report, he's the most likely to sit, sat the last 3 games with a knee injury. Would like Caleb Martin interest you? Yeah, guard forward, min price.
Are you going to Caleb Martin me here? I have him in the rotation right now for 20 minutes and like 14 fantasy points. So he gets very interesting and would get a lot of time if these guys sit. So if you randomly got like Tyler Hero out, Caleb Martin becomes, I think, a very interesting guy to go at. That's a guy with like quite a bit. He's not the best player in his family, but he's still pardon me. Probably the value guy I go for first would be Gabe Vincent. But then after that, it probably goes to Caleb Martin. Yeah.
So the last team that we really haven't talked hardly at all about, these Los Angeles Clippers, Paul George up top, 10-2 to me is a really nice price tag, especially with Jimmy Butler out. Still a very stout defensive team. You're going to see a lot of PJ Tucker. You're probably going to see some Bam Adebayo on Paul George at times if he plays. But to me, the usage is, and the peripherals this season are just too strong for me to ignore Paul George at 10-2. I love getting him into lineups wherever possible tonight.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. No modifier on SuperDraft, but still projects for about 50 fantasy points. The DK price is still a little bit too cheap as long as Kawhi is out. And again, this team is going to be at least a little tired. They're also on the back-to-back. We had one back-to-back team in each of the 3 games. The Raptors, the Pacers, and the Heat all played yesterday. So half the teams are on back-to-backs. So they could be a little bit more tired. They could be missing incredibly valuable defensive personnel from Bam. I still think there's some chance Kyle Lowry doesn't play. Maybe I'm just crazy there. But let's go into so sorry, to talk about the Clippers. Other than that, I think Paul George is great. I think he's going to be heavily owned, and I would probably want to over on him and the Heat. My gut, like right now, talking about all these edges we're looking for, there don't seem to be a ton. PJ Tucker not believing that shit is probably a small edge, and people not fully grokking the relationship of Jimmy Butler to the Heat is probably something we can get a little extra value out of. But I mentioned I would want to end up over on the Heat and over on Paul George. So this last game is going to be the most owned game anyway, and I probably lean more heavily into it than the field, because I think it should be.
People going crazy over you laying down on that table, Eddie. Doug Dubb says his lineups were fine until you laid on the table like Burt Reynolds.
Oh, I playgirled that shit.
Yeah. I got a nice little snapshot of that. So. Hey, there we go.
Send nudes.
Oh man. All right, back to business with about 6.5 minutes till lock. If you're only running one lineup, Eddie, Tommy's asking, would you go Sabonis and Precious or Drummond and Batum?
That's really interesting. For a GPP, the first one. For cash, probably the first one. The first one barely both times for me.
I agree.
But that's very close. That's very close. Batum deserves a mention. Luke Kennard deserves a mention. 4.1K. He's looked really good this year, and I think his role is more solid than he is getting credit for. So, yeah. And he's going to be on less than Precious, in what we've previously established is a much better game environment. So I think that's a valuable look there. I still like, Eric Bledsoe. We still have Ibaka and Amir Coffey both down in the G League.
Yeah, Ibaka sent down last night after the game. Played in the first quarter, and I'm not even sure, was he on the bench at the end? Because they announced he was down on assignment very quickly.
They were very upset about something. Terrence Mann still in. It's a game we want pieces of. You want to have some of that, but again, rates perfectly averagely. The Heats have been doing an incredibly good job of guarding the paint and guarding the middle of the floor, but they've been letting in a whole lot of three-pointers. So I think that should color your lineups a lot, which leads me to like, most specifically, guys I think are under-owned, which is even at his now increased price, Nick Batum. and Luke Kennard. I think those guys have a real chance to hit a good swath of 3-pointers tonight. So I think I would try to end up on top of both their ownership numbers.
Something about those Frenchmen going to Charlotte and just dogging it, and then they go to their next team and they're back to normal.
Are you channeling like Boris Diaw right now?
The land walrus. Yeah, and then Nick Batum, the snake, apparently just totally tanking it at Charlotte.
I mean, you know, it's the Queen City.
I wish Isaiah Hartenstein had power forward eligibility still, because at 3-4 I would have some interest there with Serge back down, but really, really tough for me to get there center only on Draftkings.
Yep.
I think that about covers it. So we can take the last 4 minutes and change and answer some questions.
But I would again reiterate, we don't have time to quite do it as well as I would have liked to, but really have a Tyler Hero out, Bam Adebayo out.
Yep.
Both out. Plan with whatever the fuck your lineup looks like right now, and don't leave it for granted. You're probably okay if you don't set it specifically now, as long as you didn't massively spend the first game. But really, by 9 o'clock, that's 2 hours. Set that shit up.
Dan's chiming in. He asking a very timely question. Would you Terrence Mann or Eric Bledsoe in one lineup?
I would probably Terrence Mann. I have Bledsoe projected as slightly better from a point per dollar standpoint, but I have more than double owned, so I would probably Terrence Mann in a single lineup.
I think the minutes a little bit more volatile for Bledsoe at this point. Got over 30 in the last game, but Terrence Mann seeing over 30 in each of his last 5 games. Triple H, who's back, by the way, Eddie. I don't know if you remember Triple H, but he signed back up this week, so it's good to have him back. He's asking, are you broadcasting from the FTN conference room? Why don't you tell him where you are?
No, I'm at the SuperDraft headquarters. We got a logo on the wall already.
Hey, there we go. Very fancy.
That's we spared no expense. That's the no, I'm in beautiful Salem, New Hampshire, where the magic is made. So this is the luxurious SuperDraft offices. They're not really that luxurious. There's a lot of tables and a bullpen but it's fun. It's on the wall and I get to stand up for the whole show. It's good for my cardio. Yeah,
there you go. P-Buck was asking me if I'm a Scottie Barnes fan tonight. He's got Scottie and Precious, and then the rest of his lineup is from the Heat and Clippers game. I like Scottie Barnes just fine. I believe like right on a DraftKings point per minute this year, and I think in this matchup has upside to hit 37, 38 minutes. So at 6'6", I think he's just fine.
I vote Rookie of the Year, but
yeah, absolutely.
I think I kind of prefer in this spot 5K Gary Trent Jr. I think he rates out a little better for me, but again, very just in that swath of guys who ends up ranking very similarly for me. Matchup isn't particularly compelling either way. I mean, the game itself is slow, but individually, I don't expect him to see a terribly easy or arduous path to value. So yes, I'm officially very meh on Scottie Barnes. He's there. He's 6'6". That's a very fair price. I had him for 35 minutes and 31 fantasy points, which is fine for a guy who costs 6'6". But I have no great commentary for you, so I shall not invent some for the purpose of good TV.
Well, I'll shout out Forest Fire here, who's letting us know no overlay, but reduced rake in the main on DraftKings, and I see it now. About 3,000 spots left there with a minute to go. So appreciate that for everybody else. Forest Fire, if you didn't know, I cannot play DFS any longer, but everybody else in the FTN NBA community, if you want some extra equity, or I should say some reduced rake, you can throw some more lineups into that $15 contest, with which, Eddie, I don't know if you knew, 2x crowns today for the entrance of the $15. So those people are all getting rich quick.
What you're saying is we're going to be sports rich.
Yeah. Would you? This is a good one from Jake. Hartenstein or Boucher straight up? I think it's Boucher for me still. The upside is a little bit higher. But it's not a huge gap for me.
I'm just looking at news right now.
Sure. Well, we are at lock. So we appreciate everybody being with us, and we'll talk some ownership on this first game before we get out of here for the Mario Party stream.
That's not good. Yeah. Fucking Koopas.
And if you're not staying tuned for the Mario Party stream, head over to that NFL stream that starts in 15 minutes because I think everybody around here knows. And if you don't know, now you know. The Showdown crew at FTN for the NFL team, fantastic. Seems like they're taking down six figures on a weekly basis at some point. Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night football.
Now you know.
All right, trying to get some ownership here from Draftkings. Not my laptop this time. Draftkings just taking their time to populate the live contests. We have it now. It's downloading. This is such an expedited process from what it used to be, Eddie. It's fantastic.
Is it really?
I mean, I say that now. It's taking a second here to open up, but yesterday it was like 3.5 seconds. So I'm gonna blame you and the conference room Wi-Fi.
That doesn't even make sense. I'm not hosting the meeting or anything.
Well, maybe I was just bloviating a little bit until I got it loaded up because we're loaded up and ready to go now.
That's not what bloviate means. I'm not going to let you get away with trying to use my words and fucking it up. No, bloviate, you meant to say that you were procrastinating or stretching time or something. Bloviate, and I should know this because it's my favorite pastime, is to just sort of run off at the mouth about, just be like, oh, let me tell you, I know everything about everything. That's like bloviating. You were just stretching some time.
Talk at length in an inflated or empty way. That was pretty empty.
That's
blaming, right. I don't know.
Okay, that's not bad. I guess you got me. You looked that one up quick. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about there.
Hey, I give credit to the new laptop, Eddie.
That's fast internet there.
Highest owned in the Toronto at Philadelphia game.
Well, the highest owned 76er will be Andre Drummond.
Andre Drummond is the highest owned 76er.
Then I don't fucking know. There's going to be a few up here. I think some of these guys are going to be really owned. I'll try OG Anunoby.
OG Anunoby, number 5.
I'll try Precious Achiuwa.
Precious, number 4.
All right. So I'll start at 5 and count up. Number 3 is Gary Trent Jr.
Number 3, Gary Trent Jr. Number 2 is.
Now these are both Raptors left.
Is a Raptor and a Sixer.
So Andre Drummond is
1 or 2. Yes.
He's 2.
He's 1.
Is he 1? Then Fred VanVleet's 2. But that's
Fred VanVleet, number 6.
Oh, sorry. Then Gary Trent.
Well, Gary Trent was 3rd.
I said Precious. It's not Boucher. Oh, it's not Zvi, is it?
No.
It's not Boucher.
Nope.
What the fuck haven't I said here? It's Scottie?
Scottie Barnes, number 2.
I would want to be way under that. What do people have Scottie Barnes projected at? I had Scottie Barnes at 35 minutes and 30 and some change fantasy points, which is fine for, I'm curious, do other sites have him for 40 minutes and 35 fantasy points, which is
I can check. Kyle had him at 32.1 DK points.
Okay.
I can check around some other.
That's I had 30 and 3/4. So okay. That's
fine. Scottie Barnes.
I gotta check my underlying rates apparently. Well, maybe other.
I see one site that has him below 30 fantasy points, so that's just wrong.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I felt like that's
another.
I didn't do another batch once we got Seth.
Kyle's the highest of the 3 that I see.
Okay, then that's not good. I don't know what to tell you. He's 66.
Yep.
He's 6,600, and if he projects for 31 fantasy points, that's fine. But not. I don't know what to tell you. I was henceforth very surprised. So, very strange. I don't understand.
So I'm just trying. So so I'll say this to Beast again. 2 straight weeks that you're on that Beast has an issue here. He tagged you in a question. We overlooked it. Beast, tag me as well, because if I see it as the host, maybe I'll bring it up to
I've got
Eddie
a small
if he...
laptop screen, and then I've got this mostly on news for most
man.
of the day, so I don't miss anything in my projection. So my ability to react to chat is
Yeah, I mean, we apologize for missing it, but
what was it?
You can cover your bases. The question was, you can cover your bases by tagging both of us. The question was DKGPP, Trent, or Seth Curry.
I would be more excited to play Seth Curry because I thought the ownership would be massively less. And they're both in this game, so you can tell me. Let's go Gary Trent, 31%. Like, he's going to have a number.
What's that? Gary Trent is at 39%.
39%. Okay, and Seth Curry is at 6?
Seth Curry, 4.9.
Yeah, so, like... I would rather have Seth Curry on a 3-game. Like, it's an easy way to differentiate. They project close enough that Trent is a better play. He's not 6 times better of a play. So that was basically my infatuation with Seth Curry. It wasn't so much that I liked him that much more. It's that I'm just trying to find an edge on a 3-game slate and getting that guy at like 5%.
Sure. Triple H asking us to discuss Duncan Robinson. How much would his projection change for you if Tyler Hero was ruled out?
It would depend a little bit on how other guys get ruled out. Because they can play small and slide him down to the 3. So like even Stress being there would manage a little bit, but you want Tyler Hero out, but I'll give you specific numbers for what I have for him in and out. I actually set up a provisional, so I think I can actually just run that.
Nice.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, if Tyler Hero plays, I have Duncan Robinson for 35 minutes and 24.25 fantasy points. And if Tyler Hero sits, that goes there, and he goes there, and let's assume Caleb Martin gets that shift. Sure, KZ Okpala deserves some time. Omer will enter the rotation for these 4 minutes. Okay.
Which is great.
Get your spin in there. Then I would have him at 37 minutes and 26 fantasy points. So he'd be worth about 1.75 more fantasy points to me if Tyler Hero is at. Again, that would wiggle around a little bit if Bam's at some number of other things. So it'd be good for him if anyone's at. You want everyone to sit if you're Duncan Robinson. There isn't much correlation there. Probably be neutral if Kyle Lowry said.
There you go, Triple H. We want to talk a couple of these ownership numbers before we get out of here, Eddie.
Yeah, go ahead. Read it. Do it to it. Get down on it.
So Drummond was up at number 1. He was 50% owned.
Like he's putting up numbers.
It's about right. Yeah.
Good.
We talked about
that, but I get it.
Yeah.
Like, what percentage of the time do you think he outscores Gobert? Like, I'll give him 2 to 1. So I don't think it's quite that, but I'll say he outscores Rudy Gobert 67% of the time tonight.
Yeah.
Do you want Andre Drummond at 50% or Rudy Gobert at 9?
Yeah. Point well taken. Scottie Barnes, of course, came in at that 43%. Gary Trent, 39%. Precious Achua, 35%. I'm a fan of that.
A lot of ownership in this game. This second game is going to be owned at nothing.
Yeah.
Fucking nothing. But this Miami, like, I do think the strategy I espoused is proven correct. You just want to leave everything for the last game at this point. Like, there's a real chance it's the best game of the day, and it's not. I'm not sure it's going to be owned as much as this top game. What's this top game owned?
This is 286.
Yeah, okay. They'll get on top of that. Not by as much as they should, maybe, but they'll get on top of 286. They'll get 325 out of the last one and $175 out of the middle one, I think.
OG Anunoby came in at 25, followed by Fred VanVleet at 20. I think both of those numbers are fine. Tyrese Maxey still held 17.5. Chris Boucher, 12.5. Not bad. Tobias Harris, interesting, 9.5%. I personally would have stayed away. I just don't think if he was
That
feeling
feels
so.
like about the right number for me. Like, there's some chance he plays fine and plays 32 minutes, and
Sure.
there's a lot of usage up for grabs. So, like, there's some chance he drops 50. 10% feels about right. Maybe it's nominally high. I don't think I would have played any, but that number isn't crazy. It's a really small slate.
Finishing this up, Svi Mikhailuk at 6, followed by Danny Green, Shake Milton at 5, followed by
Svi at 6 is really good, by the way. I thought Svi would be up close to
double digits for sure, right?
I saw someone else say, I saw another set say he would be 7 or 8. I think that's wrong. I think he'll be in the mid-teens. I thought he would be 15. It's not. He's 6, you're saying. That's really good. You should play like 30 minutes. Like 6 is good. Like, it's not a great matchup, not great anything, but 30 minutes, $3,500 guy, single-digit ownership is good.
Apparently at 7.4 on Fanduel in Jake's contest, Tobias is 40%.
Well, Fanduel positions this, that, and the other, but I can...
Sure. I mean, I would assume that he is multi-position eligible there, since they started to do that and do it poorly.
Doing it and doing it poorly.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Reed's still shooting guard over there.
Still. Literally, I do not believe has spent a minute in his career at shooting guard.
Yeah. Tobias small and power forward eligible, so that's just fine.
Correct. Good job. There's sometimes bigger people than him.
Danny Green, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Seth Curry, all 5%. You got to love Seth Curry at 4.9%.
I do. That was the theory.
George Niang 4, Paul Reed 2, Delano Banton 1.4. I like that. And we appreciate the 0.3% of people that thought Goran Dragic will get back into the rotation tonight, and the 0.01% of people that did in fact play themselves and Pascal Siakam tonight.
Anyone get Joel Embiid in there? No JoJo?
No. He did populate on the sheet. So did Ben Simmons, but no ownership. 0.00.
Soon to be Celtic Ben Simmons.
Oh, you think that's going to go down, huh?
I have no idea. I don't have a great sense of what is going. I will say, hey, people are like, what do you think about Ben Simmons? And I'm like, well, he's probably a fuck, but he could have real mental health issues. And even if he didn't, he could have developed them by being a fuck. So that's a little tricky. I don't know quite how to handle that, but like, he's apparently seeing multiple real mental health people. Now, again, could that just be to justify, generate sympathy, protect his brand? Like, if you want to sell shoes in 2 years, everyone in the universe fucking hating you right now is not good for your bottom line. So
sure,
I think there's a very good chance it's total bullshit, but I'm a big guy. I'm a big mental health awareness guy. So yeah, I really have trouble taking a take on the Ben Simmons. Like, if his goal was to confuse me and like to act like an asshole and then be like, I have mental health issues, he succeeded because I don't know how to respond to that.
Well, as the chat begins to tilt, I guess a slow start from Andre Drummond, who can apparently eat a buffet of dick. We will take off for the night and direct everybody to the NFL stream that kicks off here in about 2 minutes. So everybody get over there. Good luck in your contest tonight. Good luck on NFL. We appreciate you tuning in as always. So for Eddie Fear, I'm Zach Graham. For our producer extraordinaire, Thomas, behind the glass, as always,
let's get these beans.
Good night.